so I've been sitting here trying to write my newsletter, and what I want to say is there, but writing it feels kind of painful right now. So I'm going to take my own advice, and I'm going to do different this month. So you're going to get to hear me. Watch me on video if you want to. I've talked a lot here about movement and its importance in terms of our brain and our body and possibility, and the importance of variability, and the importance of changing it up, not moving prescriptively or from a place of punishing oneself, or from a place of just checking out and going through the motions. And the reason I'm passionate about those things is because I learned it. I did those things. And what I want to share with you today is a clip from late 2013 of me doing a forward fold at the wall. It's actually, if you go to my YouTube channel, it's the very first video I ever posted. I do a lot of compare and contrast. And so part of my movement practice and part of my life practice is, my presencing practice is doing like at the eye doctor, where I ask, is this better or is this better? And then, is this better or is this better? And I'm always following the, however nuanced, the slightly better. And if I don't know, or it's not perceptible to me, I'll go back and forth between the two. And that's been a big part of how I have changed what it's like, what it feels like, what it's like to live in this body. So I'm going to share with you a clip right now from late 2013. So just watch it. It's about 1.5 minutes long. It's just going to be part of this video. So the tailbone, the back of the pelvis will actually move up the wall slightly. I want you to notice if the feet start to grip, or if you feel the knees moving forward or back. Because then, instead of moving at the hip, you're using the movement lower down the leg to find this fold. So I invite you just to make your range smaller so that the knees aren't going. The other place I want you to become aware of is that connection between the pelvis, the rib cage, and up into the shoulders. And that as you're folding forward and back, you feel those spaces moving together. So if you feel the heart center moving before the pelvis, you want to ease back, bring the movement from the pelvis, the rib cage, shoulders, and head come along. And you're only moving in that range where you feel that connection, pelvis to rib cage to shoulders to head. Not feeling any gripping in the feet or gunning up in the... Okay, so I want to share a little bit about what it was like living in my body then. And what it was like was I felt constant tension in my hips. My hamstrings felt tight, and I believed them to be short. And I believed that for a really long time, like from the time I can remember being 8 and sitting on the ground and not being able to straighten my knees with my legs out long. So for a really long time, tight hamstrings, tight neck. As I'm kind of sharing these things and having watched the video, you might see yourself in some of what I share. And I just really invite you to notice how you relate to any of my experience, in your experience. So I had a unstable SI joint as diagnosed by other professionals. I had a back that felt like it might go out. I would feel like real weakness in parts of my body that kind of moved around and then they go away. But when they were there, I mean, that feeling of just utter weakness, didn't feel good. I often felt like my heart was racing and like it might beat out of my chest. Oftentimes when I was trying to express myself, it would literally feel like there was a cork in my throat and I couldn't get it out. I didn't like the sound of my voice for a lot of my life. Actually, it's only maybe been the last 7 years that I've 10 to 7 years that I like my voice, that I don't get really critical when I hear it. So that's kind of what it was like. I always felt rushed. I was very frustrated at my body. I experienced frustration towards my kids and towards my spouse, and just life in general. Everything just felt like a lot of work, and there was a lot of negative self-chatter. I've referred to that self-chatter, and I've written about it here before, as the itty bitty shitty committee. It was a lot of work. And that's what my movement looked like. So now I want you to watch a clip that I filmed today of me doing the same movement. What you're seeing here is the ability of my pelvis to move on the legs. So because I'm using gravity, this isn't active hip flexion, but you can see the end range of my hip flexion, and the balance of the movement then comes from spinal flexion. And then I reverse the spinal flexion and reverse the hip flexion to come up. And you can hear how my pants slide and are moving on the wall as I'm moving the pelvis over the legs. So you've seen both clips. You've had me kind of describe what it was like to live in this body at that time of the first clip. And seeing the difference in the movement, it's probably not going to be a giant surprise to hear me say that it feels very different to live in this body today. And I'm not going to go through all of what I did to, move from A to B, but if you want to reach out, I'm happy to have a conversation. Suffice it to say that the nuts and bolts of what I did was I slowed down. Initially, I had to be very structured in my practices and when I practiced, and gradually over time, I could become more fluid and flexible with it, much like my body became. I started educating myself on how the body works, about tissue mechanics. Really started to examine some of these long-held beliefs in terms of, wearing the body out, in terms of what it is to age in a body, in terms of how adaptation happens, in terms of pain science, how the brain and body organize information, how they prioritize information. And then it was just really a lot of trial and error. You know, and that eye doctor analogy again. So try something and be like, is this better or is this better? And I just kind of followed it along. And all of this to say that if you are sitting there watching this and you relate to anything that I shared about the before, or you're kind of excited, you know, what's possible now? Like, I have a lot of joy in my body now. I quite often will be playing around with a movement and something emerges and I feel like a kid again. Like, it literally surprises the heck out of me what my body is capable of. And just how much calmer my my internal processes feel, how much calmer my mind feels. There's a lot less fear. There's a lot just more clarity about what I feel. Before it was kind of all mashed kind of together and it all sort of had this same sort of frenetic texture. But yeah, I just really value the power of movement and the power of movement experiences as tools for not just physical transformation, but mental and emotional and state of being, transformation. You relate to something in my experience. If you want to talk to me about my experience, if you want to talk to me about your experience, please reach out. If you're watching this and it's not of interest to you, then feel free to unsubscribe, because more and more I'm going to share and relate things back to my lived experience. And yeah, so you can expect that from me. Thanks so much for listening and have a really great month.